इस वक्त आपको लिए चलेंगे बरतानवी वज़ीर आज़म खीर स्टार्मर न्यूज़ कॉन्फ्रेंस कर रहे
energy
हैं।
security and protect people working from volatile fossil fuel markets. And because we have brought stability back to our public finances, stability that I will never put at risk, we are in a better position today than we were at the start of the Ukraine war 4 years ago. Now, back then, inflation was 5% and rising. We brought it down to 3% today. And this isn't just about dry economics. It's about values. We built this resilience for a reason, to give us the space to act, to support working people, and shelter our country from the shocks, the volatility that is buffeting our world. And we are acting. So this morning I want to set out 5 steps that we're taking to tackle the cost of living. First, we have capped energy bills until the end of June, saving the average household £117. Now that's in addition to the Warm Homes discount of £150 for the most vulnerable in society. No matter what happens now in energy markets, in 3 weeks' time, your energy bills will be cut and then capped for the next 3 months. And I can announce today that we're giving a legal direction to the energy companies to ensure that every penny of the savings that we delivered through last year's budget is passed directly onto customers to keep bills as low as possible. Second, we have extended the cut in fuel duty until September. And we've introduced the cheap fuel finder, forcing petrol stations to publish their live prices to make it easier for drivers to choose the lowest price. Now, let me be really clear on this. Back in 2022, when prices spiked because of the conflict in Ukraine, I campaigned for a windfall tax on oil and gas companies. And we have raised it in government to ensure that companies can't profit from spikes in prices like these, and that money will go back into people's pockets. I simply will not allow companies to make huge profits from the hardship of working people. Now, this government was elected to stop that, and we will. That's also why we're going to support rural communities with the cost of heating oil. And this is point number 3. The CMA reported last week what every heating oil customer already knows. These are accounts of suppliers cancelling orders and jacking up prices. Now, that kind of conduct is completely unacceptable. So if the companies have broken the law, there will be legal action. And because it's clear this market is under-regulated, we're going to put that right to ensure customers get a better deal. But we won't just wait for that. I'm announcing immediate support for vulnerable heating oil customers today, providing £53 million for those households that are most exposed. Fourth, we are pushing ahead with our long-term plan to build Britain's energy security and independence, because otherwise we will continue to be subject to wild fluctuations in oil and gas prices. We've already brought in £90 billion of investment in clean British energy, and that's enough to power the equivalent of over 20 million homes. Just last week, we committed to reforming regulations so we can fast-track new nuclear power stations. Now, this has been opposed every step of the way by those who want to resist the push for clean energy. They did the same throughout the entire period of the last government, and they won. But we see here, as we did with Ukraine that this is a vital cause. Because until we get ourselves off the roller coaster of international oil and gas markets and onto clean, homegrown British energy, tyrants like Putin and the Ayatollahs will be free to attack our energy security. So we won't slow down on this. We will go faster. Fifth, we will continue to work towards a swift resolution of the situation in the Middle East. Because there is no question, ending the war is the quickest way to reduce the cost of living. And look, it's moments like this that tell you what a government is about. My answer is clear. Whatever the challenges that lie ahead, this government will always support working people. That is my first instinct, my first priority, to help you with the cost of living throughout this crisis. And I want to make one final point, because moments like this also tell you about leadership. Whether to commit British troops to principles which I believe are shared by the British people, that our decision should be based on a calm, level-headed assessment of the British national interest. And that if we are to send our servicemen and women into harm's way, the very least they deserve is to know that they do so on a legal basis and with a proper, thought-through plan. Now, there are others who would have made a different decision 2 weeks ago. They would have rushed the UK headlong into this war without the full picture of what they're sending our forces into and without a plan to get us out. That is not leading, it's following. My leadership is about standing firm for the British interest, no matter the pressure. And I believe time will show that we have the right approach, right on the economy and the cost of living, right on defence and energy, and right on this war, in the best interests of the British people. Thank you. And now I will take some questions. And I think, Chris Mason, I'm starting with you.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Chris Mason, BBC News. Given the frequency of huge government interventions in recent years after the pandemic and after the war in Ukraine, and where that's left the public finances, do you feel a constraint on whether you'd be able to offer any more support on the impacts of this war if it drags on? And if I may, you say the UK won't be drawn into the wider war, but you're willing to be part of what you described as a viable collective plan to keep the Straits of Hormuz open. What is the UK willing to do in specific terms?
Well, the two are linked, as you'll appreciate straight away, Chris, because the Straits of Hormuz is obviously vital in relation to the price of energy and the impact that that's having on the cost of living. So these are not two distinct and discrete issues. And on the Straits, we've been discussing this with partners, including European partners, Gulf partners and the US. And obviously, we need to look at the options. We've already got autonomous mine hunting systems in the regions. We're looking at options and expertise, but working with our allies on that. In relation to the bigger picture, look, my instinct, my first priority is to protect people in relation to the cost of living. And that's why we put in measures that are already there, the capping of energy bills, and to be really clear, because I know people are worried about this, that is in place until the end of June. It's actually a cut, because that's what we put in place at the budget, and then a cap, and a fuel duty through to September. And the announcement today in relation to those that heat their homes through oil, which is a big issue in rural communities and a very big issue in places like Northern Ireland, putting that in place straight away. As to what might happen in 3 months or 6 months, I'm not going to stand here and pretend to you that we all know what the situation will be in the 3 or 6 months' time. We don't. The best way through this is to de-escalate and reduce the conflict, because that is the simple, most effective way to deal with the cost of living, and that's where we're putting our all of our focus. But look, you heard what I said about my instinct, and obviously we'll always do whatever we can in relation to the cost of living for working people. Thank you, Chris, but I think I'm coming to you next.
Robert Best, 90V. President Trump wants you to commit the Royal Navy now to keeping the Straits of Hormuz open. I think you're saying no to that. Is that right? And then, separately, you'll have seen the picture that ITV published of Epstein with Mandelson and the former Prince Andrew in their dressing gowns. Why, in Jonathan Powell's words, did you rush that appointment, given that Karen Pierce was prepared to stay for a few months, and that's what the US president wanted?
Let me deal with the Straits of Hormuz, because obviously that's one of the pressing issues of the day. It's something I discussed with President Trump yesterday on the phone. There have been discussions going on in relation to a viable plan. We want to make sure that that involves as many partners as possible. That's been our stated objective here, particularly talking to European partners, inevitably talking to Gulf partners and to the US, because we need a credible, viable plan if we can. And as I said a moment ago, this is, to say the least, not easy. It is not straightforward, and therefore we have to make sure that we've got that credible plan in place. As to what the precise options are, as I say, mine hunting systems of ours are already in the region. We've already spoken about what we can do in relation to anti-drone capability. But this isn't just about what the UK can do. It's about how we play a part in bringing others together behind a viable plan. So that's where we're at the moment. Well, we're looking through the options. It is difficult, of course. It's difficult. There's no hiding that. But that's what we're working on in terms of a viable plan, because ultimately we need to get the Straits opened. Otherwise, the price of energy will remain very high for reasons that everybody understands. So it's part and parcel of what we're doing on the cost of living. In relation to Mandelson, look, the independent advisor has looked at the tail end of last week at the process we went through, and he said it was the proper process. Look, the process wasn't strong enough, and that's why last year I moved to strengthen the process, and we'll strengthen it again. My reflection is the process wasn't strong enough. The process was followed, but was the process strong enough? No, it wasn't. Now, I recognise that back in September, when the Bloomberg emails came to light, and it was then that I started the process of strengthening it, and will continue to do so. Thank you, Robert. Beth, can I come to you?
Yeah, thank you. Beth Rigby, Sky News. Prime Minister, people are worried sick at the prospect of their energy bills going up by £300 or more after June. The Conservative government back in 2022 capped bills for all households through an energy price cap. It cost about £40 billion. You're not going to do this, are you? Can you just level with people that wealthier households are going to have to suck some of this up? And on the Mandelson files, your National Security Advisor said the process was, quote, weirdly rushed, and Mandelson was appointed before developed vetting had been complete. You told MPs in the House of Commons that due process was followed. Is there a possibility that you have misled the House when you said that? Thank you.
No, and the independent
Britannia
advisor
वज़ीर-ए-आज़म सर केयर स्टार्मर इस वक्त न्यूज़ कॉन्फ्रेंस कर रहे हैं.
सब्सक्राइब करें और बेल दबाएं ताकि कोई खबर रह न जाए.